It seems like everywhere you look these days, Donald Trump is making headlines again.
Yeah, you can't seem to get away from him.
But we're going to dive into some of those headlines today.
Okay.
Specifically, this piece you sent over called Texto Pegado.
Yeah.
And it really dives into how Donald Trump really kind of walks this line between politics and entertainment.
Right.
It really begs the question, what does all this mean for the future of American politics?
Exactly.
Is it like a new era of, radical transparency?
Right.
Is it a masterclass in distraction? I mean, what is it?
It's fascinating because I think the piece brings up a really interesting point about comparing the Trump White House to something like a reality show.
Yeah.
Like it's almost produced for maximum drama.
Yeah, and you wonder what's the motivation
exactly
behind some of these carefully staged moments.
Well, and some of the things that they highlight in the piece really struck me, like that whole, Elon Musk bringing his 4-year-old son into the Oval Office.
Oh, yeah.
Like, that makes a great photo op.
Totally, but it's a little calculated,
It feels a little calculated.
What was the message there?
Yeah.
Is it, we're all about innovation?
Right.
Are we trying to appeal to a certain voter base?
Exactly. And the other one that really stood out to me was the Mark Fogel arrival late at night after being released from a Russian prison.
Oh, right, yeah.
It's incredibly dramatic.
So theatrical.
Almost theatrical, and again plays into this idea of the presidency being a performance.
Right, and it's not just, those sorts of things either. I mean,
wow.
What about the whole signing executive orders on Air Force One?
Oh, yeah.
Such a powerful image.
Sure.
But is it really about efficiency, or is it all about projecting that image of power?
Right.
It's hard to know.
And I think it's really helpful to put this into a historical context.
Yeah.
Because past presidents have definitely used media, to their advantage.
Right.
We can go back and think about, JFK and the televised debates, Reagan and his mastery of the camera.
Right.
But what Trump's doing feels different.
It does.
It's this relentless barrage of information,
right.
often in a very personal, unfiltered style.
Yeah, so, I mean, is that what some of his supporters say?
Right.
Is that transparency?
Yeah.
Or is it, as his critics would say, just a really effective distraction tactic?
Well, and the source points out, that there's evidence for both sides.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about just the sheer volume of information that was coming out of the White House,
mm-hmm.
I mean, you had press conferences and tweets and rallies.
It was constant.
Like an unprecedented level of access, really.
That's a good point. But, I mean, couldn't you also argue that all of that information, especially when it's, focused on these personality clashes and these dramatic pronouncements,
mm-hmm.
doesn't that kind of obscure the substance?
It can.
And actually make it harder for the average person to actually stay informed.
Right.
I mean, it's like drinking from a fire hose.
It is. It's just so much information, and so much of it seems geared towards entertainment.
Yeah.
That it can be really overwhelming, and I think that's an important thing to remember.
Right.
Even if you buy into this idea of transparency,
yeah.
that there may be downsides to that kind of constant media engagement.
Well, and it makes you wonder, where do we go from here?
Yeah.
I mean, is this just a Trump thing, or are future politicians going to look at this playbook and say, hey, this works.
Right.
I'm going to run with it.
It's a really interesting question to think about.
Yeah.
Imagine a future where every politician is constantly performing, crafting these dramatic moments for social media.
Yeah.
Does that lead to a more engaged public, or does it turn people off entirely?